Hey guys, Drew with Drew Does Trucks back. We have my 2017 F350 behind me. We've been doing brakes on all four corners. I'm going to show you how to do the fronts. The rears are the same, just the size is a little bit different. So I'm going to hit on a few key high points here, walk you through it step by step. All right, first tip is they come with these stupid plastic covers. These are a huge pain. They have these little pry holes. You're going to scratch up your wheels trying to use those. What you want to do, take an impact that's actually rated for these wheels. Get the right socket. So a lot of socket kits don't come with the right socket for these. This one's a 21 mil, which is what my truck takes. Put it on one of your lugs. These lugs have all been replaced with solid lugs. If you still have the hollow factory lugs, this is a good time to replace them. And just take, you see how that cover just comes right off? Your lug will be stuck in it. They just pop out super easy. There you go. That's it. Take off the rest of your lugs. Always support your truck with jack stands, all that crap. All right, so this is what you're going to see if you take your wheel off. Your rotor here is free floating. It is held in place by the wheel. Right now the caliper is what's holding it in place. These are a two-piece caliper. This is your stand. This is your caliper itself. I could not find a metric equivalent on this. This is a 5/8. That's what fits it best. This is a 21. These 21s are super snug, so you're going to need a big breaker bar like this one right here. You can also turn the wheel and get to it with an impact from the back. For now, we're just going to be using hand tools. If you just wanted to change the pads super quick, all you have to do is undo these outer ones. But I'm going to take this off and show you why you don't want to do that on these trucks. All right, here you can see with our top bolts removed just on the caliper, we can stick a pry bar in here. They should just come right out, but a lot of times you'll have a little bit of a lip built up on the edge. You can actually just pop the entire caliper off. There is enough slack on these to set it on top. Make sure you tie it up, set it on top there. We don't want to break our ABS sensor wire, which is a smaller one, or our soft brake hose. You don't want to put too much stress on those. So as you can see, you have access to the brake pads. If you wanted to change them, you can actually pop them right out here. These ones, again, just old and crusty, but they will pop off just like that. But you don't ever want to do this without taking this off. I'll show you why. All right, so first off, anytime you change your pads, you really want to change these little clips, and all your new brake pads should come with them. So it's really, really difficult to do this correctly and get these clips changed with it on the rotor. So that's reason number one, to always take them off. The second reason is these are your slides right here. And most of the time, if they're in good shape, you can just pull off on them slightly and pull your, this is called your caliper pin or your caliper slide. And it has this rubber boot on it. So this rubber boot, you can easily remove. Be careful not to tear it. You can buy new ones at parts stores, but you want to get it started just with like a small flathead screwdriver and kind of work your way around. As you can see, it just has a groove in there that holds that boot on. And this one is in exceptional shape, but most of the time you're going to find they have a little bit of corrosion here, especially if you live somewhere where there's road salt. These sit right down by the tire, and they're only sealed with this rubber boot. So what I like to do is clean the boots out with a quick squirt of brake cleaner, and do the same to these, and then I'll apply new lube. So I like to use this synthetic ceramic brake grease. It's compatible with disc brake systems, useful up to 3,000 degrees, so it's not going to burn off. Most of the time, once you put that on, these will pretty much stay in this kind of shape next time you change them. But this is a hard job to do with them on the rotor, and that's why I always recommend pulling that stand off. So once you have it cleaned up and lubed, they're really easy to put back together. The seals work both ways, so you just put your seal on here and snug it down gently, and it'll pop back in place. And then you slide it back in this bore. You can give that a squirt of brake cleaner if you want to clean any old grease that's in there. If they're in good shape, that's not like super vital. And once you push them all the way in, snug them, and they'll just pop right back in place like that. Now, if you have one that does have some corrosion on it, let's check this one out here. Now this one's in pretty good shape too, but a lot of times you'll see them and they'll be corroded right here. So you can save them just by cleaning them up with a wire wheel, because really they're never going to be all the way in the bore. They live their lives right around in here, so they can get by with a little corrosion right here, as long as it's not so bad that it like weakens the the pin, because that's what's holding your calipers on basically. So just take a wire wheel, clean any corrosion off if there's anything on there. These two are in really good shape. The ones I did on the other side, they were super corroded. But anyway, we're going to clean these off and get them greased and stick them back in. So if you're doing a truck that has higher miles or has a lot of corrosion on the underbelly, go ahead and pick up a set of these. This is new boots. These do get old and dry rotted. They're not necessarily something you want to change every time you do them. But this is a kit. This is Wherever, and these are sold by, I want to say Advanced Auto, but part number 8240A. This is the only place I could find the parts stores near me. Napa and AutoZone said they didn't carry them. I don't know if that's true or not. But anyway, that's what they look like brand new. I would say if you're working on some high mileage, like I said, just go ahead and get a set. They come in a 4-pack, and when they're done bouncing around, they're just nice, pliable, brand new. So I've got those extra. Like I said, you could change them if you wanted to. These ones are in really good shape, so we're not going to bother. Now, I'll show you the easiest way to get your new pads back in here. So we want to take our clips off one at a time because they're different left to right. And I just like to lay my new clips out. And these have like a side that lays flat and a side that doesn't. So if you find, like this is backwards, so this is the other side. And they're really easy to get mixed up and you'll never get them back in the right way. So I just lay them all up the side that they like to lay on. And so we'll find two that match right here, and then we know this one goes in this way. If they won't go in, sometimes they get a little stubborn because they're brand new. That one kind of clicked in. You can take a flathead screwdriver like this and give it a really, really light tap to seat them in all the way. So this one's not quite seated in all the way. There we go, just pushing on it, screwdriver seats it in. But you want to try not to hit the outsides, hit the inside, because these corners are the ones that need to be seated right here. So do that for all 4 sides. So here's all 4 sides done. You may be wondering why you got to change those if your old ones are still in good shape. The reason is these get rusty and they get clogged full of all this brake dust and stuff. And they're what your pads ride in. And these are sliding calipers. So you want to make sure you change them every time. That way it gives it just like a fresh, smooth surface to slide on. And that way these things will get all crapped up and they'll be ready to change the next time you do your pads. So a lot of your brake pads for this truck and for a lot of newer vehicles will be labeled inner and outer. Your inner one goes obviously on the inside of the truck. Your outer one's going to go on the outside. These pads are actually designed to be fairly easy to install. If you slot them in this way and then turn them upright while pushing down, they should pop into place. And sometimes they'll hang up right here, and if they don't easily go past that, don't force them because it may just mean your spring clips aren't in perfect. So let's see where this one's hanging up. So as you can see, we just have a little bit of a gap here, and we just need to push up on that with a screwdriver. And like I said, if they don't go in, you can just tap that with a hammer just slightly. We don't want to mar the clip. All right, and with that small adjustment, that snaps right in. The rotor holds it in place so it won't push through. If you try and do this off of the truck, it's really hard to get those pads to stay in place without slipping right through the other side. So the exact same thing we're going to do on the other side. It's a little bit harder to see. Again, you can turn the wheels opposite of the side you're working on, so you steer all the way to the right. That'll put this out towards you, make them a little easier to see if this is your first time doing this job. All right, so this is what it'll look like when you're done. You've got pads held in on both sides. The clips hold them in place. I like to leave the stand here just a little bit loose. It just seems to make getting the caliper on that much easier. So here's your caliper. So these calipers, these are your pistons. That's what squeezes out. These right here, these are your pistons. So we need to find a way to push those back in. So I'll show you how to do that. So they make fancy tools that are just for this. These having dual pistons make it a little harder because if you push in on one, it'll just push out the other without actually pushing the fluid back up through the brake lines into the master cylinder. So I just use a big C-clamp and your old brake pad so that we're squeezing evenly across both, and then I tighten it down. So after the clamp is tightened down, you'll see that our pistons are all the way back in their bores and we're ready to slide this over our pads. We have our two pins that are going to be a little springy. So slide this down, push in on the pins, and really the most important one to start is the top one, because it can actually hang with that bottom pin sticking out. If we get our top one started, get that a couple turns in, let that caliper hang, and then we come down here, we push in on our pin, slide it in. You can hopefully see that. So again, we just push in on our pins while we slide that caliper over it, because it'll push out and hang up a little bit. And then all that's left is to torque these down. And I would love to tell you the proper torque specs, but I didn't look them up. What I do is just, for these smaller ones, we'll go pretty darn tight with this little guy. And for the big ones, we go pretty darn tight with this guy. And that seems to get them about where they need to be. As always, I recommend you consult with your service manual, get the correct torque, and use Loctite where needed. But pretty much done. Throw your wheel back on there. This is just a reminder to everybody out there watching, always hand thread these on before you hit them with the Ugga machine. Just recently helped a friend fix a bunch of wheel studs on his truck that he had boogered up. Had a beer or two, got in a hurry, and did not thread these on by hand, and as a consequence ended up spending a couple hours and 30 or 40 bucks on parts so that we could take his whole hub apart and replace those wheel studs. All right, so we've got all of our lugs back on and torqued. I actually do believe in torquing your lugs, since if they're torqued incorrectly, it'll warp your rotors. We did put new rotors on this, I just didn't show you that step. So these, if you try and like push them on, you'll end up cracking them. It seems brutal, but the only way to get them on is to punch one side, then punch the other. That snaps them in, doesn't break them. That's it. And that's it. It's the end of the video. Set your truck down. Take it easy. Your calipers, since we pushed our pistons all the way back in, your initial brake application, your pedal's going to feel like it goes lower than usual. So go really slow. Give the pedal a few short strokes when you first get in to kind of reset those pistons at the level they're at. And then you'll want to take a drive and read your instructions that came with your pads. Some of them say they need to be burnished, I think is the word, but basically broken in. A lot of them say that they don't need to be broken in. So typical burnishment, just depends on what your manufacturer recommends, is a stop from 15 mile an hour, drive for a couple minutes to cool them, a stop from 25 mile an hour, etc. Make 3 or 4 stops to get up to about 45 mile an hour. They don't have to be panic stops. All you're trying to do is gradually build some heat into those and putting some of your pad material on the rotors to give you the ideal friction. So follow your pad instructions, because not all of them need that. We're gonna go take this for a test drive, make sure everything's good. Here at the end of the video, just wanted to show you this. These are Akabono super or ultra premium ceramic pads from Napa. These have 40,000 miles and less than 2 years on them. And this thing has been breaking terribly and making all kinds of noises. And this is why we took it apart. Look at these pads. They are destroyed. They're actually falling apart. One of the ones on the other side actually had some of the pad material break away from the pad backing and caused me some other issues on that side. So stay clear of these. I learned after the fact, ceramic pads like this are no good for towing applications. So this truck regularly grosses 20,000 pounds. These are no good pads. So if you're watching this, you're from Akabono or Napa, you want to make it right, let me know. These were like $140 pads. All right, so everything's back together. If you're working in the heat, stay hydrated. It's been like 99 degrees here lately. So we got a little umbrella, we got a little fan, but always a good idea after you do your brake work, pop your hood, check your fluid level. The fluid should go down as the pistons expand in the bores, should go back up once we push that in. But if you've taken your car to a quick change or something, some of those monkeys will just keep adding fluid till it's at the max line, even as your pads go down. And then once you push the fluid up, you'll overflow your reservoir. So always a good idea to keep an eye on that. But anyway, the rears, exactly the same as the fronts. The bolt, I think the bolt for the caliper stand is different size. I think the bolt for the caliper itself is the same size. The pads are really similar. The rotors are identical. So the work, not that the rotors are the same part number, but the work is exactly the same. Take it apart and do it. That pretty much takes care of all the little quirks for this particular truck. So couldn't find anything specific for this truck when I was looking for one. Decided to make it myself. So, all right, guys, thanks for watching the video, and I'll see you guys on the next one.